Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of automated driving, Tesla, lots of news recently. I mean, Elon had that all hands on deck meeting, I think on Friday, was it? So the
Yeah,
market
Thursday,
really
Friday, I
had
think last week. Yeah.
Thursday, Friday. Yeah, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, but I mean, it's pretty, he knew obviously the details are going to get leaked out, but he's addressing his employees, and I think my whole point, I think in the meeting he kind of confirmed, or and there was also that email where he confirmed, ARK's price target that Tesla could get to, $3,000 a share or something like that within a few
hmm
years, and
Yeah, by
so
2025, I think is that target date. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a 3 trillion market cap company, and I
hmm
put something out there on Twitter. It was like, yeah, I agree. I think we all knew this already. As if they execute well was the key, right? It's not a
hmm
given. They have to execute well, but if they
Yeah.
execute well, it's very possible, and it's including full self driving, very possible and almost probable in my mind. That they would by that time. And I think he's aiming. There's 100,000 employees at Tesla now, and that's crazy how big it's grown. But I think a lot of these employees don't really know a whole lot about the stock, and they choose.
Yeah.
I've talked to some people at Tesla before, and they've told me they've been educated by our channel and other channels like ours, and been very helpful. Just to get them and other employees they know that are watch it get educated on Tesla's bigger mission instead of being stuck in their kind of tunnel vision role within Tesla. But he says a lot of a couple people have told me a lot of people at Tesla actually don't choose the stock compensation. For example, they choose the
Oh, really?
cash compensation at the end of the year. To me, is kind of crazy because you get a little bit of a better deal, I think, with the stock compensation. But instead, you're like, oh, I'll just take the cash now and get paid out in cash. And if you can afford it, I think the Tesla stock all the way. So that to me just signals that there's a lot of employees that don't really understand the magnanimous vision of Tesla still, like 100,000 people is a lot of people, like, so I
Yeah.
think it's good for him to kind of put forth that vision to all his employees so they hopefully understand it.
Yeah, and I was thinking, there could be. I haven't heard any reports of this, but you could imagine a situation where there's some line worker who was hired in 2018 that had their stock-based compensation go up 10x, and they're sitting on like a pile of wealth that some new employee coming in at the same job, it's much harder for them to kind of imagine going 10x, from where we are right now at $600+ billion market cap. So I think kind of laying down the foundation that there's still a lot of upside to go from here could be helpful in kind of enabling new employees to get the sense that they have not missed the boat. That there still can be kind of wealth creation opportunities for Tesla employees just by kind of sticking with the company and executing well while they choose the stock-based compensation plan.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Yeah.
sure that was the motivation, but to me it seemed like a logical thing that Elon might be trying to communicate.
Yeah. And just to get improve the morale too of all the employees, but a benefactor will be that the employees, hopefully more of them would understand how valuable a stock choice for the compensation would be versus cash in the future if they execute well. So, it's a big end of quarter push. He tends to hold these rallies or whatnot a lot of times ahead of some push, or sends an email out to all hands on deck. Let's push it for the
hmm
last few weeks of the quarter. So it's also bullish to me in a lot of ways for the end of the quarter. I think, 200 record deliveries again, obviously. Just by what margin is it going to be? 220,000 deliveries, something like that, like Troy Tesla kind of projects around that, or is it going to be 240,000, like some wild card out of China, and they deliver an extra 20,000 no one ever saw coming? I don't know. But I think the floor is, I can't see them delivering less than 210,000 this quarter, but we'll get more
Right.
estimates soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's yeah, it'll be interesting to watch though, and this quarter more than most, I'm really interested to see their gross margins. I mean, last quarter was such a surprise on their automotive gross margins, and they achieved that despite relatively low credit sales, and there was still kind of a lot of ramping that was going on. So. Yeah, I'm just really curious to kind of see how that pans out. It'll be another month and a half probably until we actually see those results. But man, I'm getting very excited to see the financial implications, and then looking forward even to Q4. Elon seems to kind of be betting the farm a little bit on full self-driving. We'll have the beta 10 release going on this Friday night. Then he was saying 2 weeks from then, kind of the notorious button might be available. I'm kind of holding my breath on that
Yeah.
promise, but
Yeah.
that kind of coupled with the news that I think came out in that same meeting that the $25,000 vehicle is not going to have a steering wheel or accelerator or brakes. Like they're just going to basically kind of bet that full self-driving will be capable of handling it at that point. So
Yeah.
he does seem, you start putting these little clues together of, like confidence on this new release, that little fact about the vehicles, the $3,000 stock price if we execute well, and it seems to me that the confidence level in FSD is increasing right now.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, Elon was a little unimpressed with 8.2 or 8.1 or something full self-drive, but he's talking up this new version that's about to come out. And yeah, it's going to be really eye-opening this Friday night, I guess, after people download and start driving it to see, how it does. It's this Friday, right? I think is when the new
Yeah,
version
it's this
is.
Friday. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the aim is like another version 2 weeks later that is capable for public release potentially, but that's the aim. It could be, several weeks later. We'll see. These things always like Zeno's paradox, keep stepping, keeping a little closer, but we're closer and closer. It's just hard to know. You don't know, we don't know for sure. So there was also the billionaire on Twitter, Leo Kogon. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, but Leo Kogon. Is that how you pronounce it? You think, Matt? I'm not sure. But
Koguan Leo, yeah. Or
okay.
It's hard because the last name goes first in traditional Chinese, so it seems like Leo is probably his last name, and then Koguan is his first name. But I'm not certain. Sometimes Chinese people switch it around when they go in English. But
yeah.
Anyway, sorry, you can kind of keep going with that, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, he said he's buying another 1 million share. He said he already says he's the third largest individual investor of Tesla. So he's behind, I assume that means behind Elon Musk and Larry Ellison.
Yeah.
Right? So
I would imagine that's the two.
I mean, yeah. So now he's going to have an extra 1 million shares. So that's a pretty big statement there. And he followed up later in the weekend, confirming it and like, yeah, that's what I said, what I mean, basically. And I don't think people are talking about that enough today. And part of the price, Tesla's price is up, $20 last I checked, 1750 right now, over 2%. I think, if you're buying 1 million shares of Tesla, in the market, you're going to move the price significantly. That there's liquidity out there, but and you don't buy, people wouldn't buy that all in a market order all at once, or would spike the price to over, but it would be like an algo order over the course of a day or maybe a few days. I don't know, but that's going to move the price up. I remember several years ago when Larry Ellison put his position on in Tesla, the price moved up substantially. I mean, that was way back when Tesla was like a 30 or $40 billion market cap company, or maybe 50 billion market cap. But he bought, a million or a couple million shares of Tesla kind of on the open market, I think, way back. And that really moved the stock up, 10%, on that news even alone. Because so many people pile on when they find out like, hey, this multi-billionaire's buying Tesla, let's get into, so there's a lot of kind of follow-on momentum with that too. So the news hasn't really broken a lot about this yet, though. I haven't, on Twitter, there was a Twitter thread, but I haven't seen any headlines about it at all.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were kind of skeptical of this guy in general because he has some, views on Taoism and things that are kind of outside the realm of kind of normal Western investor philosophy. So I did see kind of a lot of people saying, I don't take him too seriously, but judging by his actions and I think his net worth, you can never really trust these things you see online as net worth, but I think his net worth is only about 2.1 billion from what I saw. So if you look at it as a percentage of his total wealth, he's really kind of betting the farm on Tesla with this 1 million shares plus his original position. So seems to me that there is a high degree of conviction for him, and like you said, will create a little bit more upward price pressure. Just as kind of more shares become unavailable for purchase as long-term holders kind of have them. I mean, we saw this to a much greater degree, to be sure, but with S&P, when you have buyers come in that are no longer going to be selling those shares, you're essentially taking those shares off the table for trading. So yeah, I think it's a really good signal. I mean, we're kind of getting, I don't know if you're getting the same sense, but it seems as this year has kind of progressed, there was a feeling that maybe, oh, the stock had gone too far too fast, and we saw a nice correction down to, not nice is probably the wrong
Yeah.
adjective, but
Yeah.
saw a correction, and now it seems confidence is kind of coming back, and people are saying, oh yeah, we could see a price in the $1,000 range. We could see a price even in the $3,000 range. I think there was some analyst report that came out today with a price target of over $1,200. I think it was a bull case target of over $1,200. So it does seem that there's a corner someone has been turned in people's minds where they're seeing that the current price might be a little bit too low for kind of where the company's going to execute.
Yes, no, I agree. I think there's more people realizing how far ahead Tesla is from the competition when you see GM Bolts all get kind of recalled, and you see self-driving car startups, the CEOs leaving with Waymo, or it's just the signals are out there. People are putting the breadcrumbs together that, hey, Tesla really is the leader in this stuff potentially, or it is the leader in EVs and potentially in autonomous driving. And it's just a slow kind of snowball effect. And the macro markets certainly help, low interest rates. And I think the S&P is up like 20%, record highs. So the macro market is cooperating, obviously. So we have the best, storm, weather from that perspective, in the environment for, investing on growth stocks. So, Tesla did come up dramatically. I still think it could be range bound from 800 to 400, ultimately, until self-driving really comes to fruition. But hopefully that'll be a few weeks away. Maybe people all kind of consensus among the Tesla bull. If consensus is among the Tesla bulls first, that hey, full self-driving is so legitimate, it's like really here to stay now. Like Tesla is robo-taxi capable, even though it's not legal yet, it's capable. If that's the consensus among Tesla bulls after the release in a couple weeks or a couple weeks from that, then I think the stock could really hit the moon pretty quickly. But there has to be that kind of consensus among even skeptical bulls, like Barry Black, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I think even the Gary Blacks of the world kind of give credit that FSD is a feature set that people will pay for. So even if FSD is not so good that people believe that autonomy is capable, I think the catalyst could be you have let's just say it does happen in 2 weeks' time that this goes into wide release. I mean, I'm going to be dying to show people, like all my neighbors and everyone, like what this actually can do. And I would imagine there's no small percentage of people who will, order a Tesla at that point, kind of after seeing that functionality of what it can actually do, assuming it's kind of as Elon is advertising. Then on top of that, you've got the potential for FSD subscriptions from current customers, or people just buying FSD outright. So you've got a lot of kind of significant order and margin catalysts potentially coming out of this, depending on how good it is. So yeah, I think there's going to be, I think there could be kind of potential for a correction downward if it doesn't really deliver, or if it gets delayed again a couple months. But I could also see it, the stock jumping up if this is kind of as good as Elon is hinting.
I agree.
So I'll be curious to see which way it falls.
Yeah. From Miranda Reddy, do you think Tesla has a problem with ramping production of 4680 cells in large scale, as Elon announced that Cybertruck and Roadster are effectively postponed to 2023? I mean, I think the 4680 cells are really a huge key to Tesla's success and execution and future. I don't see anything signaling a problem with the ramping. I think they mentioned on their earnings call there's engineering issues that are working out, but nothing's not solvable by good engineering. They felt pretty confident on that, and so I'm gonna have to go with that. I don't, until that something proves that otherwise, I kind of have to go at their word on that. And maybe just instead of a year, it takes 18 months or 2 years to really ramp up, from battery day. So I don't know, Matt, do you have any thoughts have you read anything more recently?
Yeah,
about the
I mean, I might take a little bit of a dissenting viewpoint there. I think at least as it relates to what was kind of originally talked about at Battery Day. So if my memory serves me right, I think they said they were trying to kind of do a different iteration at that Cato Road facility every 2 or 3 months, and they were
Yes.
thinking it would be 3 or 4 iterations, and then they'd kind of be ready for large scale manufacturing. So if you do that math, that they should have kind of been ready at least to figure out what are the right pieces of equipment that they need to handle the large scale manufacturing of 4680, like right about now. So it seems, for whatever reason, that it seems pretty clear that they haven't solved those problems yet. So I do think there's a delay in when Tesla is going to be implementing 4680 relative to when they were initially thinking of Battery Day. So that if you go with the presumption that you don't want to redesign Cybertruck or Roadster, for example, to use kind of cylindrical cells or the existing cells before 4680, and then like 6 months in do a whole design change, then I think there's a logical case to be made there that I think the 4680 delays could be resulting in a delay to Cybertruck. So I don't know that necessarily is what's happening, but in my mind, there's a kind of clear prioritization of getting Model Y up and running first, and then maybe that buys enough time to kind of figure out ramping that product both in Berlin and Texas, where hopefully by then Cato Road has solved these problems and you can just kind of replicate that line in those two sites. So to me, I could see that being the case, but I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah. Yeah. One line that stuck out for me, I remember from the earnings calls, is that Elon mentioned they have sort of like a Baskin Robbins assortment of batteries. And I just remember that line. It was just like, yeah, you know what? There's like 5 or 6 different types of batteries now I'm trying to keep track of. And it's growing. It seems like every couple of weeks, a new style or whatever, chemistry or form factor combine, these iterations. And I think he really wants, just like the 1 or 2 or maybe 3 types of batteries, and the 4680s, going to be a major part of that, maybe by far the biggest, most common form factor. Then they only need like 1 or 2 other. So I think he wants to keep it simple again. It's getting complex and out of hand pretty quickly with so many different types. So I think it's still a top priority to get this 4680 cell down, because then you could really simplify the flavors of batteries you build out and mass produce it much more efficiently, with using Wright's law, as my t-shirt says, from ARK Invest. I don't understand this formula, by the way. I understand the concept of Wright's law, but I don't understand the variables, the y and a, and I haven't studied it. But
I just remember that from arithmetic, where with the slope of a line is y equals ax to the b. I believe that was what it was, but I was always terrible at math. So
yeah. So if they get
yeah,
this, it'll slant. They'll produce a crap load of those, and the cost will come down dramatically to kind of where they envision it, and maybe even lower. But they'll be able to do so many tremendous things with batteries going forward once they do that.
Yeah, did you see his comments too? The limiting factor had a good kind of tweet on
I saw that. Yeah.
the debate on what's like the right chemistry, and that was really helpful. And Elon responded to that, talking about kind of the benefits in most cases of having an iron phosphate battery, where nickel gives you better performance, but just based on kind of economics and limited supply, you only want that for like kind of your top end products. And kind of the one thing that he said is really just a bad idea is pouch cells, which is like what the rest of the industry is doing.
What everyone else is doing, yes. Yeah.
Which, if you look at the Bolt fires, and it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, if you got like a bigger mass, where it's harder to get the coolant to the center of the cell. That, of course, that makes sense. That you'd have the potential for kind of runaway fire risk. More so in a pouch cell than in a cylindrical cell, where there's kind of a more even distribution of the cooling. So I thought that was really interesting. I'd encourage anyone who hasn't seen that, check out that tweet that Elon replied to for the limiting factor, because there's a lot of good commentary on kind of the philosophy, Tesla's philosophy of batteries.
From Tesla Act, it seems like a lot of people are waiting to pull the trigger on Tesla Solar, including myself and friends, but waiting for a further price drop. What's your point of view of this? I don't know. Rooftop solar, the price has increased, and there's still high demand. People I've talked to not too long ago said they're trying to get orders in, but it's like a long wait list, at least where I live, for the Tesla roof solar. But Yeah, I mean, I think the sooner that someone pulls the trigger, the better. Energy prices are not going down. At least in California, they're going up. And then the fires and being cut off from power, all the more reason why you want to have your own kind of self-generating, utility for your house. What are your thoughts, Matt? This is kind of your expertise, I guess. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So I do think we're going to see some price drops in the future. I could be wrong, but with solar roof in particular, I mean the price increases there were really really kind of hefty. I think it was like depending on what type of roof you're offering or you're looking at, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 30% price increase recently. Now maybe that was kind of necessary for Tesla to kind of maintain their profitability on that product. But if you look at their financials in Q2, they were right around break even on energy, which they've always kind of run that at a -5 to 10% loss. So in fact, they might have even been positive 10% now that it's been a while since I've looked at it, but the largest gross margins on energy that they've had to my memory was in its Q2. And they still haven't scaled up solar roof. I mean, if you remember Elon's comments from a couple of years ago, they're trying to ramp solar roof to 10,000 roofs a week. And I don't know where they are now, but they're nowhere close to that level. So I would imagine when you get to the point where you have that many roof crews that are capable of doing the work, that you will have some improved efficiencies, which will allow for, I don't think you're gonna have 30% gross profit on solar roof. I think instead what you'll see is kind of prices come down to the point where more customers can buy them. I really want a solar roof actually, and I was looking at putting one on, but the price, including the power walls, was around $100,000. So I'm thinking it probably isn't economical for me to do right now, and I'd rather kind of wait until I need a new roof and kind of hope that the prices come down, 25, 35% at that point, back to kind of where they were saying it was going to be originally. So I could be wrong, but I think utilities for sure are gonna kind of continue to increase their rates going forward, and I'd love to do kind of whole deep dive on that at some point, kind of explaining how flawed their business model is. But regardless of what happens, utility rates will continue to go up, which will make kind of installing your own distributed solar more attractive going forward, just because you're fighting against a non-competitive monopoly.
Yeah.